next up, as everyone's setting up, we're going to have the wonderful Jiri from Matchmade, who's going to talk about influencer marketing and how that's not a great idea when you're talking about using it in acquisition. Jiri, would you like to come and join us?
I hope everybody's well rested. I'm not at all. I did have my first cup of coffee. I'm just going to bullshit a bit while you settle in, so feel free to talk a little bit, but not too much. I took the train here yesterday from Berlin, which is nuts. It's 12 hours sitting. It's actually like way nicer than 12 hours on a plane, so they're not comparable, but still, like, it's pretty intense. And you spend a lot of time just on Twitter reading about how terrible the world is, how Ukraine's going to be in war zone and whatever. It's all bad. And I don't know if you guys remember 2 years ago when we were sitting here, and I think it kind of felt like we reached peak bullshit. They finally ratified the Brexit treaty and Trump's on his way out, and then it turns out that actually we were just getting started. So I'm extremely glad, extremely surprised to be here in person talking to you guys, and I hope you all appreciate that we have this moment. And despite my slides, I hope you're going to get something useful out of this. There's going to be a bit of repetition, so I guess if that was the sweet version, I got maybe the savory side of things when it comes to doing online content sponsorships. And I mean, you might be wondering, like, why is this influencer marketing guy on stage saying that influencer marketing is dumb? Well, partly because, I'm an internet edgelord, so I'm trying to get a reaction out of you, but partly because the world's changed, right? So we started doing this stuff 5 years ago, and at the time, like, it was influencers. Like, there was no culture, there was no terminology. Like, that's all we knew. But in the past 2 years, especially at Matchmade, we've been almost exclusively focused on working with creators, and I think a lot of people think it's the same thing as how AR, VR suddenly became the metaverse, and now it's cool again, and crypto became whatever, like Web3, and now it's cool again. Influencers became creators, and now it's cool again. That is bullshit. I think there's a fundamental difference so what I'm trying to do with this presentation is to kind of give you that philosophy of why is it different. Run through some numbers, some kind of market data on like what does it mean, why is it significant, and then unfortunately there might be a bit of repetition when I go over our process and how we make working with creators perform and work for us, and how you can hopefully do the same. And then if we have the time, we'll look at a couple of customer cases, but looking at the clock, we might just kind of very quickly skim through those slides. So getting to the point. Blah, blah, big money, big thing. What I think is significant is that, so when you look at the market, like everybody has their own estimates. I don't know if it's 14 billion, but it's still like some meaningful chunk of money that's being spent annually. What I think is really important though is that if you just look at the growth rates, creator stuff, influencer stuff is growing about 20 times as fast as the rest of digital marketing in terms of budgets. And obviously that's a process that was kind of like really accelerated by COVID. But it's something that was already happening before, maybe not at the same pace, but still quite significantly faster than the rest of the market. And when you think of all the changes around, privacy and whatnot, you can kind of safely expect that this isn't stopping. It's probably accelerating further. And if this pace continues, we'll be looking at this accounting for a third of marketing budgets by the end of the decade, which just means that like even if you think it's all kind of silly, it's not probably going to go away, and you'll probably have your boss asking what your strategy is. So now's a good time to pay attention, I guess. And I mean, this is, oftentimes when we think about influencer marketing, you think of whatever, PewDiePie, Markiplier, Mr. Beast, Laserbeam, you think of the fucking Kardashians or whatever. And I mean, that's how it used to be done, right? You would just like ask your kids, like, hey, who's really cool? Who's like a cool gaming dude? Who do you watch? And then you would go to their YouTube account, you would find an email, you would email. There's a perky manager type person who will, respond, tell them that tell you that you just need to pay 100K, and then you'll get these amazing things. And the thing is that often you would, because these guys have such insane reach that when it works out, it works so well. So then we all hear these stories about how, somebody's entire strategy was to give some tens of thousands to one guy, and then they got the most installs they've ever gotten, and everything's great and blah, blah, blah. The challenge with that is that it's not a strategy. like it's a cool thing you did, and if it hadn't worked out, you just probably wouldn't tell people because now you wasted 100K. So as marketing professionals, as UA professionals, like you want to be looking at something that you can actually repeat, you can predict, and you can actually scale, because really like you can't hit those like big influencer kind of home runs every single time, which is one of the reasons why you want to be looking at creators. So on the more kind of philosophical side, which I do think is significant, like I've always hated the term influencer. I think it's almost like degrading, right? It's telling someone that, hey, like the value you have is in your ability to influence people to buy crap. That's not super cool. I don't want to be an influencer. I don't want to work in influencer marketing. But I think it's quite descriptive of kind of like the mindset. So it's really coming from this like quite commercial kind of celebrity culture, this kind of offline rag magazine, celebrity rag thing, of big names where the audience kind of knows that the relationship we have between me as your fan and you as the influencer is that, it's very commercial. Like you build your reach and then you monetize it. And then because I enjoy the stuff you do enough, I'm kind of okay with that, but it's not super engaging, right? Whereas then when you look at online creators, content creators, it's really born out of the kind of like computers as kind of tools for creating something cool, and now smartphones as tools for creating something cool, and people wanting to share that, which then in the end kind of results in a significantly more authentic relationship between the audience and the creator, and which results in way more engagement. And so I guess the last two words on this slide are the most important ones. Like what I think creators excel at is that they drive engagement, and there's so many of them versus the influencers who they bring reach, the few that exist, but that's kind of it. So then to the the boring stuff. So graphs. So maybe the biggest reason why I'm really trying to get people to understand that influencer marketing is not a strategy is that there are zero influencers out there. So this is our estimation of the market and kind of trying to break down the different size creators into cohorts. There's a description of how we kind of measure this in small text down there. But what I'm trying to say here is that if you look at the bars for the macro mega celebrity creators in the first graph, like they're actually 0 pixels, because compared to the nano micro mid-sized creators, they're a rounding error. Like, so if you want to build a scalable, repeatable model for marketing with online content, you will just run out of people you can work with very fast. Whereas on the kind of smaller creator side, there's millions. So we track about 10 million channels, and we think about 2.4 million of those are kind of like high value, like very good partners for gaming companies. So, and whereas on the kind of bigger influencer side, we're talking, thousands. More relevant than that is the second graph, which is where we're kind of estimating the actual reach of these people. So I don't know if you can see this very well, but the lower one is the total monthly views reached by these different sized creators on all the platforms. So that tells us kind of like how many actual consumers can you reach if you were able to work with every creator in this size group. And what is significant here is that the mid-size creators are quite interesting because they drive by far the most views. They have by far the most reach. Whereas in terms of like the number of creators out there, it's a large but manageable number of people. But overall, like when you just look at this, the reality is that the kind of mid-size and smaller creators reach more than twice as many people every given month than all the kind of big creators combined. So reason number one, if you want to scale, you want to be looking at the smaller creators. Second one, and this is, I wish we did a better job visualizing this, but kind of going back to my PewDiePie, Markiplier, whatever scenario, the reason we all want to work with creators, or one of the big reasons, is that we kind of assume that my thing is probably going to be this cool viral hit because my product is a bit cooler than all the others, and I really like the influencer. We have a good flow, so it's going to work out. But the reality is that like you have no idea. Like any given piece of content on social media, its performance is completely unpredictable. You're just throwing the dice and kind of hoping it works out. And what that means for you is that you want to maximize the number of bets you can take. So kind of like the law of large numbers, essentially. And so what the graph is showing us, so on the left, the green bars, those are campaigns. So campaign is whatever, it's some tens of thousands of spending. So each one of those represents one campaign where we only work with small to mid-sized creators. And then the red ones or the pink ones are also campaigns, roughly similar budget sizes. So every bar is kind of representing about the same amount of money. But the ones on the right, we only involve large influencers. And what the number shows us is the deviation from expected campaign performance. So if it's at a 0, that means that we got exactly the results we thought we would get. If it's a huge spike, it means we got that viral hit. If it's going down, then it means that we have an angry customer at our hands. And I mean, what you can see here is that, yes, like with the big creators, you can get these outside successes. But again, like in terms of like having a repeatable strategy, it is in your interest to maximize the number of creators you can work with, because that makes the results actually predictable. Like the only difference is that in the red ones, we have a small number of creators. In the green ones, we have a large number. And I mean, again, one more way to think about this is like just how you guys spend money on Facebook. Like, let's say you have 100K to spend on Facebook ads. Do you really put it all on one ad? Probably not. So it's just like, this is all marketing works the same, but somehow people think of influencers as this like crazy magical space where rules don't apply. They do. One more argument, engagement. So this is one of the most consistent things we see across all platforms, all kind of content platforms, all creator types, all niches, whatever. The smaller a channel is, the more engaged the audience is. So engagement meaning, you know, comments, likes, shares, whatever, they do something with the content. And another thing we also see consistently across all campaigns is that the more engagement you have, the more conversions you have. And in my opinion, it is actually simple as that. You probably want some conversions out of your campaign. And if you do, then you want to work with smaller creators, because in more engagement, more conversions. Simple. Then, of course, the question now is that, do these guys actually want to do it? Okay, so there's some millions of creators that could be out there, but do they actually want to, sell themselves out, right? Well, the good news is they do. So we have a pretty large network of creators that we surveyed, and all of them would be interested in doing more sponsorships than they're doing today. So there is a pool of millions of channels that you could be working with. The challenges are that for them, it's really hard to know if something is genuine, for example. So trust is a huge issue. Relevance is another one. So they get a lot of kind of very spammy offers where they don't know if it's legit. They don't know if it's relevant for their audience. They don't know if they can, just trust them. So, for you guys, like having a brand name helps. But I mean, I'm not going to lie, this is one of the advantages we have having done this for 5 years. Like when we reach out to the creators, they know it's legit, which helps get them across the line. So anyway, then flipping that, why don't you guys work with thousands of creators instead of a handful of influencers? Well, I mean, it's hard. You know exactly how much work goes into all of this. I'm going to go through the steps quickly to understand, but like it's, I'm not saying that you need to work with a platform to do this. We've seen insanely elaborate Google Sheets workflows that enable companies to work with thousands of creators, and actually it can work. But the influencer marketing mindset where you think you're some kind of creative person, you're like a casting director and you're an AD and whatever, just like doesn't work at all. Like it's all about data and numbers and repeatable processes, automation and tooling. So it's really like, it's two different worlds kind of trying to understand each other. I come from I'm a programmer, so that's my point of view. I'm not a creative person, but that's what scales. Credentials wise, so we work with 12,000 creators. We add about 1,000 of these guys every month. At the moment, we're reaching some fairly interesting numbers of people at this point. It's all global. We do work with a lot of gaming companies. I've been working in games for 20 years, so hopefully I have some idea what I'm talking about. Blah, 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 blah. Let's get to the good stuff. So this might be kind of, we're baking a cake or making pizza or whatever. I just wanted to walk through kind of like how we think about this process. So for us, this is highly automated. It's like we work with fairly high volumes of creators. I mean, maybe something you want to take a photo of if this is relevant to you. I'll have another summary slide at the end of this. And I mean, there's many ways to bake a cake or make pizza. You can break it down however you want, but this is kind of how we typically structure the process. So I'm going to quickly go through the steps. First one is the parameters. by far, again, it all just boils down to like putting your ego aside. So the worst thing you can do as somebody who is responsible for working with creators is think that your creative input is somehow relevant. It's not. I mean, you're a marketer, like you know which audience you want to reach, you know what kind of conversions and what kind of performance you expect, you know how much you're able to pay for them, for a user to make back the money you spend on marketing. So just double down on that. So any successful creator campaign starts with setting up the objective parameters. So like, how do we price these creators? You need to be able to look at the numbers that are available to you and come up with a price that you think will work. So you probably want to look at what are the kind of CPMs that work for you in other channels. You want to look at expected conversions and just boring stuff, you know, audience breakdown, and then come up with a pricing algorithm that tells you how much each creator is worth to you. And same with targeting. Like you don't want to, people always like pretend they have objective targeting, and then they get a list of creators and then they start going like, yeah, I don't like this guy's hair, I don't like this guy's voice. That shit doesn't scale. Like your opinion doesn't scale. Your opinion will change from day to day. And also it's really hard to go through, for example, 10,000 creators and, you know, assessing if you like their hair or not. I hope you like my hair. I need to get a haircut actually. Anyway, second part is outreach. So now you have your list, like you've figured out your parameters. You've used that to come up with a list of people. Now you need to get a hold of them. I think the thing that goes wrong here often is that people's experience with influencers is that they've reached out to the manager of one of the really big guys, and turns out it's the manager's job to reply to your email, so they do. Now we're talking people who might do this as a hobby or as a side job, who get 1,000 spammy emails every day. Most likely they won't see your email. If they do see your email, they don't know who you are. If they know who you are, they're not sure if it's actually legit. So there's so many reasons why they will not reply to you. Which means that like when you do the math of how many people you need to work with to reach the numbers you want to reach, for the outreach part, you want to be looking at conversion rates that are similar to other mass emails that you're sending. So quite low, unfortunately, unless you build up a relationship with these guys. Negotiations, our industry loves to negotiate. That's the last thing you want to be doing. It's the worst idea. And again, it comes from this kind of manager mindset where, you know, when the industry was born, you had a lot of kind of confused people who suddenly realized that they can make a bunch of money. And then you have a bunch of other people who realize they can make a bunch of money by telling these other people that they have some expertise to give. So you had the kind of manager class inject themselves into the whole discussion and saying like, hey, you know what, like, are you scared of business? Are you scared of numbers? Don't worry, I'll take care of that for you. I'm going to negotiate the best deals for you. Maybe I take 60% of your revenue, but you know, best deals. So we have this assumption in the industry that you always want to negotiate. But the problem with that is that, again, like the scale I'm talking about thousands of deals. There's no way you can negotiate. So again, you take your objectives that you set in the beginning, you calculate the numbers, you say that for you, because of your audience, we're going to be able to pay exactly this much. No more, no less, take it or leave it. If they don't want to take it, then tell them, thank you. Well, we might have a new deal for you in the future. And the way you want to think about it is that you don't want to look at individual cases ever. You want to look at how are the kind of masses reacting. So if you send out 1,000 offers and 900 get rejected, that means your pricing is wrong. But you don't go negotiate with every single influencer. Like then you go back to the drawing board, you change your pricing strategy and you try again, which is like, it's boring. It's not fun, but like that's how you get results. That's how you get scale. Up, yeah, wrapping up. Okay, almost done. This is the part that is the actual cool, fun stuff that we don't get to do at all. So campaign operations for us means just the act of actually getting the content produced, getting it out there, you know, hopefully getting results. Again, the point here is that you work with these creators because they are creative, because they know how to create engaging content for their users. You are not the person who knows how to do that, so you're the project manager, right? So your job is to send them reminders, give them really high quality assets, give them a good brief that they can do something interesting with. Do not tell them what to do. Don't try to do their job for them. No scripts, lots of reminders. And then finally, at the end, the important bit. So actually kind of like learning something, iterating, improving. I would say there's a few things that you have to get right. First one is lift measurement. So all marketing requires good lift measurement ability, but especially the creator stuff, because you get so many kind of like unattributed conversions. The companies we see really succeeding are the ones who've invested in building that ability. And you need to have the ability to accurately assess the lift of your campaign, and you need to pair it with the ability to do large enough volume in a short enough time span to get the spike. And it depends on you what the numbers look like. Always experiment, of course, but by far the most important thing is that you don't ever want to look at any numbers from a single sponsorship. They can't be trusted. So any conclusions you draw have to be drawn from the kind of campaign level data. So either this means that you run multiple concurrent campaigns with different parameters and you compare the results to draw conclusions from, or you run a really big campaign and then you identify kind of cohorts, clusters of creators that performed well or performed poorly, and you figure out what their characteristics are, and then you decide how you want to change the parameters for the next run. Do not look at the one viral hit and think you can reproduce that, because that doesn't work. Case studies we're skipping. I have 10 seconds left, so I'm just going to put this on the screen now. That's kind of our maybe 9 commandments of to do this stuff. Feel free to take a photo. We have not a freebie, but we do have a 30% off thing running with Pocket Gamer right now. So there's the voucher code if you want to try it out. Thank you. Only 5 seconds over time.
Well done.